And welcome to our Conceived Baby discussion today. Today I'll be talking about a topic that I'm interested in finding out more about, and I'm sure you are too, and that's surrogacy. I know for me it's always seemed like something celebrities are doing in magazines, and I know we even had headlines last week, these scary headlines saying, "Will the surrogate take my baby?" So today we're really here to dispel those myths and give you the facts on surrogacy, what's involved, how it works, as well as the legalities that you need to know. So firstly, for those of you who haven't joined us before, my name's Tasha Jennings, founder of Conceived Baby. I'm a naturopath, nutritionist, natural fertility specialist, and author of The Vitamins Guide and The Fertility Diet, as well as an expert contributor to many major media publications. I'm also the director of Zycia. Now, Zycia means life and specialises in premium nutritional supplementation to promote and support life in its earlier stages. And as many of you who are part of the Conceived Baby community would know, I'm passionate about helping couples have happy, healthy babies. And my aim for conceivedbaby.com.au is to really bring together a team of specialists across all aspects of fertility and preconception health to provide qualified expert information to help you achieve your baby dreams. And the fabulous expert that we have for you today is surrogacy lawyer Stephanie Caballero. Stephanie not only specialises in this area, but she's personally been through the journey herself. Stephanie and her firm, the Surrogacy Law Center, have represented over 3,500 clients from all over the world through surrogacy, egg, sperm and embryo donation. Stephanie and her firm specialise exclusively in family formation and reproductive law and have appeared on various programs and print media, including The Today Show, HuffPost Live, ABC News, BBC Mundo, The Daily Beast, In Touch Magazine, the Bakersfield Californian, The Examiner, Creating a Family radio program, NPR, Los Angeles Times, the Union Tribune and the LA Daily Journal. And as I mentioned, Stephanie had her own journey through infertility. And after 8 years of treatments, including having endured more than 10 artificial insemination procedures, 3 surgeries, 3 miscarriages, and 13 IVF procedures, she finally realised her dream of having children when a surrogate carried her twins. Stephanie also had to adopt her twins because the state where they were born didn't recognise surrogacy. Now Stephanie helps other couples realise their family dreams through surrogacy as a member of the American Bar Association, the San Diego Bar Association, and the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, serving on the board of its legal professional group. Stephanie also serves on the board of Parents via Egg Donation and Fertile Action. And I'm thrilled that Stephanie has taken the time out of her very busy schedule to speak with us today. Welcome, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here all the way from California when we're here in Melbourne. Now, firstly, I touched on that a little bit now, but can we touch on your personal journey, which obviously had a huge impact on your career path?
For sure. It's the reason why I do what I do. When I'm talking to my clients, my intended parents, they know I know, what the struggle's like. And it was a real big struggle. So it started when, I should have been able to have children. I got married in my early 30s and we started having children right away. And we had problems right away. So nearly immediately I went into doing artificial insemination, which, your people listening might think, well, that's the first step before IVF. So that should be easy. But it was awful. IVF is very regulated, and you have a calendar, and so you know, like what medicine I'm supposed to take today, and am I going to the doctor's today, and okay, 3 days from now, within a 3-day window, I'm going to have my egg retrieval, and then after that, then I'll have my embryo transfer. Artificial insemination, when I did it, it was kind of like, well, you need to come into the appointment today, and maybe tomorrow, I don't know, but it was a mess. I have to say, it was such a struggle because every month we wouldn't get pregnant, and then when I finally went to IVF, the miscarriages, I was still very young. I was still under 35, and my doctor thought I would be a slam dunk. So it was a really, really big struggle for me, I have to say. But at the end of the day, eventually it worked. So what I tell my clients is that, listen, you can be a parent, you can be a mother. It may not be the way you thought it was going to be, but if you really, really want that baby, you can have a baby.
That must be so reassuring for couples and your clients, obviously, to know that you've been there, as that you've been in their shoes, you know what it's like, and you can help them get through the other side because you know the way.
For sure. So a lot of them cry when they talk to me because it's almost like a relief. I remember this one woman who came to the office, and she was meeting everybody, and she was picking her surrogate out and her egg donor. I think she needed an egg donor as well. And, so she was, meeting the team that she was going to work with. And then she just saw me, and she saw, because I do have some pictures of when my children were very young, like 6 weeks old. Because everybody knows my struggle. So, and she just looked at my children, she looked at me, and she just fell apart. I meand literally fell apart. And then she kind of got a little embarrassed. I'm like, no, don't worry, it's okay. I brought her into my office, and, and I think, soon she's going to have a baby. So.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm the same. It's why we do what we do, is to help other people. I struggle with fertility, obviously not through surrogacy like yourself, but to see other people achieve their dreams and have the baby is just amazing. So, I mean, you touched on there, finding the surrogacy, finding her team. How do we go about, for those of you who don't know, how do we go about finding a surrogate?
So you could either do it on your own, which has its own risks. So you can either have a friend or a family member that you know. And I know in Australia, the laws, it can be kind of tricky. Even some places in the United States can be a little tricky. So you have to be careful about that. So you definitely can either, do a friend, or you can do an agency and they can help you locate the surrogate. I did not go through an agency at the time. I looked at agencies, but, we had been trying for 7 years and we were literally, tapped out. It was really financially draining. And interestingly, people ask me, because they assume that people who do surrogacy are rich. And a reporter said to me way back when, well, you must have been rich. I said, no. I said, we didn't go on vacation. There was no anniversary. We went camping. We had 10-year-old cars. I shopped at Old Navy and Target. I mean, all of our money went to having a baby. So at that point, I actually did like an email blast, and I said, we can't do an agency. Will somebody help me? And a couple friends came forward, and a family member did, but she ended up not doing it. And then a family member stepped forward and said, I'll do it for you. And wow. She ended up, she'd already had 2 kids, and she ended up carrying my kids. So for me.
So I guess what are the benefits of, obviously you said there's risk involved in finding a family member, and there's laws in different states. What about where you are versus, I guess, in Australia? There's obviously different laws to where you are. Right. How does that work versus finding a surrogate or having someone that you know?
Right, because I've had people come to me and they say, well, I have a friend here in New York, or I have a friend in Michigan, state of Michigan, because New York, you can do it, it's tricky. Let's say the state of Michigan. And I'm like, well, no, you can't do the state of Michigan. It's illegal. So you can't have a surrogacy in the state of Michigan. And they're stunned because they think it's the United States and it should be completely open. And then you have to look at the laws, because some states say that you have to be both, or at least one person has to be genetically connected. And sometimes you either need a sperm donor or an egg donor, like the state of Illinois, which is a great state for surrogacy. But if you need an egg donor and a sperm donor, you can't work in the state of Illinois. And I had a couple who were and I said, no, you can't work in the state of Illinois because you both need help genetically to have a baby. So you really need to, find out your path first. Like, am I going to do an agency? Am I going to do a friend or a family member? And keep in mind that with a friend or family member, most of my clients and people, friends, think that my surrogacy was perfect. And I tell my clients, it wasn't. She's her own person. She's not going to be me. And I think the hardest part about surrogacy is you do everything possible to make sure that this person is going to carry your baby, and then you jump off that cliff and you hope that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. And there are things she did, and I just kind of went, but I knew at the end of the day that I was probably going to have healthy babies, and I did. So, but it wasn't perfect. It's not going to be. I mean, your very own pregnancy isn't perfect. So why would you think a surrogate pregnancy is going to be perfect?
Absolutely. And obviously, having been through it, you can understand those risks. And it's interesting, different states, and it's great that people have people like yourself who they can see to get that great advice from, because obviously there are things that people think, okay, a friend of mine can do it, but it's not that simple. So find out what you need to know first. And in Australia, we hear a lot about international surrogacy. And people going to India, people going to Thailand, Nepal. Why do we, as Australians, go internationally largely?
And I've talked to Australians, and they would really like to come to the United States. They know the laws are there. There's protections. It's safer. But the insurance situation is very different than the rest of the world, and they're afraid of the insurance. What if I have a baby that needs medical care? I'm not going to have insurance, or my insurance isn't going to cover everything. I can't be left with, this huge medical bill. So they have been going to Mexico, and Mexico's over, and so is India, and so is Thailand, and so is Nepal, and so is Cambodia. So the where you can go for what's called low-cost surrogacy is definitely shrinking. I do hear that they are starting to go to Canada, because Canada has a similar health plan. They have socialized medicine. But I have to understand, and I really would want to get the word out for Australians, is that most of the time now, it's one embryo transfer. Most doctors I work with do not transfer two embryos. And, one baby to carry is usually very, healthy. It typically goes full term. The surrogate is healthier. So your medical costs are definitely greatly reduced. I can't tell you. I think I have, all the cases I have right now, I think I have 2 with twins. It's not like when I was, doing my surrogacy, which was 17 years ago, it's definitely much different. They have a lot of testing, and that's what they have in the US. And I think Canada does as well. I don't know to what degree. So I just want to tell them that it's greatly reduced, the cost, for sure. But I do get it, why they go. I definitely get that.
So that you mentioned the low cost options, I guess, have shut off now. Why is that? Are they, no longer legal, no longer no cost? Well, why are people no longer taking those Nepal and avenues you mentioned have closed down?
Yeah, it's not stable. There are people, I can't tell you how many people have told me that, I went in thinking I was going to spend $35,000 or only $50,000. And at the end of the day, they got stuck in Thailand, or they got stuck in India, or they got stuck in Mexico, or, the embryo quality wasn't good. And the transfers took 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And, she ended up with triplets. And now I have to have a reduction. And now my babies are in the hospital. Oh, wait, I can't get out because the birth certificate process isn't what they said it was going to be. And so I'm here in a hotel, and now I've lost my job. So Yeah, and the governments, the bad press, the governments are like, well, we can't take this bad press, and so they shut it down.
Right. Okay, that's interesting for people in Australia who have, I guess, taken those avenues in the past, and that America is an option. Are you aware of the laws in Australia?
Yes, I'm aware of some of them. They are quite tricky, for
Yeah,
sure.
we go overseas. Yeah, but
Yeah, I did meet a wonderful surrogate, because I know most of the surrogates, or a lot of them, the two that I met through that conference I attended, they were a traditional surrogate, so it was their own egg. And it was altruistic, so there was no compensation. And just like any other surrogate, they were thrilled to help somebody have a baby.
yeah.
But I know surrogacy is really hard. I just read in the newspaper of this Australian couple, several miscarriages, and they put out an ad to find somebody in Australia. I think after so many rounds of IVF and having a baby, they're probably, they want to come here, they want to go somewhere, but they can't afford it. So they're trying to get somebody to help them.
So I know in Australia we often mention it has to be altruistic. There's no fees. I mean, in America, do people get paid to be? Does the surrogate get paid, or are they reimbursed, or how does it work for the surrogate who is carrying the child?
Where I'm at in California, she can get paid, and most of the time she does. My surrogate did. I felt like, you're carrying my baby. And not like a 9-to-5 job where you can, like, at 5 p.m. go, okay, I'm done now. No, you're pregnant 24/7. Yeah. So I was happy to help her out, and she was a single mom at the time and had 2 small children. So, and in like California and most states, there are really people that have really been in this industry a long time. The doctors, the psychologists. She meets with a psychologist who talks to her about the process, meets with her husband, make sure she has a support system. She meets with the attorney, and her attorney talks to her about, okay, this is what it means to be a surrogate. The contract is usually 35, 40 pages. I know it's not fun to read, but it's important, and then we go over that with her and talk to her about the medication and ways to keep her safe so she has a good cycle, and what to do, and how to, do you exercise? Do you work out? Is your husband in the military? Is he deployed? Do you have a power of attorney? So there's so many things that we do in the States to help make sure that it's run as smoothly as possible. So everybody has a good journey. At the end of the day, you get one healthy baby.
Yeah, which is what we're all aiming for. And you mentioned the traditional surrogate that uses their own egg. So there are, I guess, other options of different types of surrogacy, depending on whether you can carry your own genetic material or not. How does that work, and what are the different types
There's a traditional surrogate, and I do about 1 case a year. I'm actually getting ready to do the parentage order for one, and that's where the woman uses her own eggs. So she's essentially donating her eggs and carrying the child with her. It's very important that she has psychological support, especially when it's her own genetics. So we make sure that she is not, genetically attached or attached to the child, that she really goes in thinking that I'm giving you this child, this is your child. And those women, I have to say, because that surrogate that I met was asked the question, and when I represent these women, they go into it thinking they could just do that in their head, like, this is not my baby. And they've had children, so they get it. They know what it's like to carry a baby and, care for a baby, but they're like, no, this is your baby. This is not my baby. But most of the time it's not traditional, because I do tell my clients, listen, there's a risk, because the court knows that this is her genetics. So even though we can do the parentage order, or even though, she says that she's going to give you, upper rights for this baby, if she changes her mind, the court's going to say, they're going to take that into consideration. They're either going to give her visitation, custody, or both. So I tell them this. So it's really important that she has really good psychological screening, because I don't want somebody to get involved in this and halfway through think I've made a mistake. I want to do my due diligence in the best. So that's more rare. The one that most people think about is gestational carrier, meaning she's not genetically connected. It's the intended mother's eggs, like my eggs and my husband's sperm, and, it's our embryo and she just carries it, or it's an egg donor or a sperm donor. So that's 99.9% of the cases that I handle is gestational.
Right. Yeah, that's more what I guess what I'm used to considering. And you mentioned that the parentage orders and things like that. What are the processes that need to be in place? Because obviously you mentioned in your own journey that you needed to adopt your twins because it wasn't recognised where you were. What are the types of parentage orders and things that need to be in place to ensure that you are the parents legally?
Right. Yeah. I tell my clients this, and there's some states where you still the non-biological or one party has to adopt, and my parents are like, no, I don't want to be in that state, because now we have what's called a parentage order. So California is a pre-birth order. Some of them are post-birth. This is pre-birth. So we're able to get a judgment of parentage, declaring the parents the legal parents of their child the moment that child's born. So it's as if they gave birth. So it directs the hospital to, ban the parents. They get the birth certificate and they fill it out with their names on it. They direct the healthcare of their child. The surrogate does not. And my parents love it. I mean, as you can imagine, it's very comforting for them. And it's a final judgment. They say, no, we don't ever want to appeal this. It can't be appealed. The surrogate goes, thank God. So it's very comforting, and we petition the court, and the court definitely looks at that very carefully. We have to present the contract. We have to have a declaration from, the attorneys involved, so myself and the surrogate's attorney, the surrogate's husband, the parents, the doctor involved. It's quite a lot of work, but they really, really do like it. And most of my clients, if something has to be done post-birth, they kind of have to be encouraged to work in that state because they just really want to work in a state like California. So.
It does sound like a good option. I mean, the biggest risk I think that people were concerned about is I mean, that's what the headlines we saw is literally last week when I was thinking about this discussion. I said, will the surrogate take my baby? And so that is obviously, by my understanding, if you have all those clarifications, is not a possibility if you go about it properly. Is that correct?
Correct. I have to say, though, that is the question I'm asked. Every time I'm at a party and somebody goes, what do you do? And I tell them, and I stand there and I wait for it, and they lean in and they go, so how many babies have you had to go get, when they go to another state? And I go, none. I tell them it's a Lifetime movie because for the most, the surrogates are screened, and so this is what happens in an agency, definitely a top-notch agency. They get an application, and it's like a 45-minute interview with the surrogate, and they weed out nearly 90%, 80 to 90% of these women, because these women, they tell them how much work it is. These women are working probably 3 to 6 months before they even see a dime, because they have to be screened by the interviewer, and then they have to have a psychological screening. They go to the doctor gives them an ultrasound, then and then they say, okay, fine, we're going to give you blood tests, we're going to take it 2 weeks, and then, okay, now you're ready. Okay, but you're only ready to meet with your attorney. So we have to wait for the contract. So by that time, it's at least 3 months. I mean, you could fast track it, but it averages 3 to 6 months. I mean, that's a lot of work. Right?
Yeah.
Right, and then after the contract's signed, okay, then you get your first little bit of payment. But it's not that much because you're not pregnant yet. So, so you weed them out, all out. So it's a lot of work for them, for sure.
Which is good, and so it should be in a lot of ways, because this is a very important job that they are taking on. So it's great to know that these people are screened really well prior to. So, and obviously, when you were saying, I see it as celebrities, and it's perceived as something that's incredibly expensive to do. You mentioned that wasn't the case for you, and what is involved? Obviously, there's thousands of dollars like celebrities.
It's a lot of money. It is. It was a lot of money for me too, right? But I when you have a friend or a family member, then definitely the price is less for sure. It's about $125,000, $150,000.
Yep.
You have to budget for that. And that's a lot of money. I mean, we get it. I have to say that a lot of people, you know, they either save up, friends and family. A lot of parents help their children to do it.
Yep.
But it is expensive, I have to say. And I really, you know, it was an 8-year journey, all the IVFs, you know, if anybody's ever gone through that, they know what it is. You know, you're up and you're hopeful, then you're down. And, you just feel like, you know, I might as well have taken that money and put it in the toilet and flushed it. That's how I felt. I resented every dime that was ever spent on infertility. My friends were going, oh, we went on a cruise for our anniversary. And I just didn't say anything. I was like, oh, that's nice. We went to dinner, you know, so, right. So I have to say that it was really, really, really difficult. And then it's a grieving process. You know, a lot of studies have now come out to say it's as stressful as going through cancer treatment. And it is. And anything you go through in a marriage together, you don't go through it at the same time. So, you know, you're not at that same level. So it's just really, really difficult. But I have to say, after my children were born, I would have gladly spent 3 times as much. Right.
Yeah,
because
I think most people would say the same. Absolutely.
You resent every dollar, but, you know, at the end of the day, for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who are listening would be in a similar boat or haven't been through a similar journey or possibly going through the similar journeys. So I guess for those people who are struggling with their own fertility, who perhaps may not have thought of surrogacy an option, and perhaps that is now, you know, opening a door for them, what would you suggest couples do if they are thinking, okay, maybe surrogacy is an option for us? What are the first steps that we need to do?
Well, the first steps are, you know, for me especially, I did a lot of testing to determine, could I carry a child or could I not? And then it was determined that I couldn't. I would say to those people, you know, you definitely need to get with the right doctor. I spent way too much time with my OBGYN. You know, he's a great doctor for, you know, delivering babies, but you really need to go to a reproductive endocrinologist. I know there's very good clinics in Australia. So you really need to go to a specialist and then determine, you know, can I carry a baby on my own? And there's some women who know they can't. And there's, you know, couples who never could carry a baby. You know, I help the world and, you know, single people and all types of people. So definitely get with a good reproductive endocrinologist and then do some research. What country are you going to go to? Look at the pros and cons. Because for most people in Australia, they have to go outside. You know, is Canada an option? Canada, you technically you cannot pay a surrogate. She cannot receive compensation, but she can receive expenses. So she gets expenses. So, you know, there's options. You can look at the United States. I have to say, you are taking chances working in a country like, you know, Cambodia or, you know, if Panama's open, you know, you definitely have to be able to take some risks and realize at the end of the day that it might not work out. You know, I know a lot of people who have lost their embryos in countries like that, or they come back to the country and they do a DNA test, because you have to do a DNA test, and the baby's not theirs. So you definitely do your homework, you know, talk to people and make sure that you get, you know, you get referred to people, and then look at other options. Look at, you know, okay, so you say, I'm going to the United States. Well, you know, this doctor told me to go here to this agency. Well, look at other ones. You know, I've had people from Australia say, okay, I'm with this agency, but Stephanie, who else would you recommend? Because they only told me one. And I go, okay, so you're with a good agency, but check these 2 people out. Check out these other ones. Or, you know, I'm with a doctor here in the United States, you know, but my agency only told me 1 doctor. Is there somebody else? And I'm like, okay, because you really should do your due diligence. I mean, I remember, you know, checking out this doctor, and they're like, they wouldn't even work with me until I looked at 2 other people. I'm like, but no, I want to work with you. No. Go look at 2 others. Really, you need to go see what's out there. So that's what I would say is, I know, see, this is how I was. And I get it. You have to go now. I have to have a baby now, because you feel like time's running out. I remember somebody telling me it took her friend 8 years to have a baby. I was like, I'm 32. I don't have 8 years. I'll be 40 in Well, who knew I had 8 years, because that's how long it took me. But at the end of the day, if you have your baby 6 months later than what you thought, but everything worked out well and it was a smooth journey, and the people that were involved did what they said they were going to do, then it's worth the wait, right?
Absolutely. I'm big on that in both, I guess, natural conception as well. Do your homework, get everything done right, get the nourishment right. And then the same goes for surrogacy, obviously. Yeah. And I think really anything to do with having a baby really takes due diligence. And, this is something that is going to impact your child for the rest of their life. So getting it right to start off with and making sure you're on the right path, I think it is great advice for any path you choose to take in relation to fertility, naturally or by a surrogacy. So excellent. Well, it's been wonderful to speak with you today, Stephanie. I know you've answered a lot of my questions, and I'm sure a lot of people out there who may not have considered surrogacy as an option, but it is a viable option, and you are obviously living proof of that, and your two wonderful twins. How old are your twins now, may I ask?
They are almost 16. So
wow.
They're not babies. I know, right?
I wasn't expecting you to say that.
Yes. I tell people now that when I did IVF, it was the dark ages. It really, truly was. It's such just different worlds now, for sure. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing what's opened up in relation to fertility, and there's some great specialists out there. And if you are looking for a specialist in relation to either surrogacy or fertility, we'll make sure we pop Stephanie's details up there on the Conceived Baby directory. So jump on the directory. There's some great specialists there, because as we discussed in relation to whether it be for your own fertility or whether it's surrogacy, seeing the right person can make all the difference. And that's what Conceived Baby is all about, helping you put you in touch with the right people and giving you the right advice from the get-go.
Yeah,
so
that's
excellent. Last things you'd like to mention, Stephanie, before we go?
I think I pretty much covered it all, but I really am accessible. So don't think that, oh my gosh, I can't email her because she's an attorney. No, really, if you have a question, please email me. I will be happy to help guide you and direct you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I think even for the Australians here today, it's such everything's become closer really with the internet these days. So Stephanie is accessible, and obviously, as she mentioned, it is something that Australians can consider going to the USA because there are a lot of benefits, as we just discussed, in relation to going to a country like that compared to some of the other options that may be cheaper and people choose to take. So if you have any questions of Stephanie, feel free to contact us through the Conceived Baby website, or also put Stephanie's details up on the directory so you can contact her directly. So thanks for joining us today, and make sure you do jump on conceivedbaby.com.au, and if you haven't already signed up for the webinar series, be sure to do so, because we have some fabulous guests coming up. And also we have the podcast now, so jump on there, and if you prefer to listen in your car, jump over to the Conceived Baby podcast. And for more information on fertility in general, jump on and log on to our newsletter, our fortnightly newsletter at conceivedbaby.com.au. We'll speak to you next time.